Hey everybody, this is Donna from Yoga in My School and Kids Yoga Academy, and I'm here with the absolutely amazing Jodi Komitor of Next Generation Yoga because she is celebrating 20 years in the biz, in the kids yoga biz. And she is an amazing, amazing trailblazer for the kids yoga community. And I couldn't let this opportunity pass without having a little chat with her about what the last 20 years have had and what they've taught her and where she is going from here. Because I know if I know anything about Jodi, she always has amazing ideas and something up her sleeve that's coming up pretty soon. So without further ado, I'll introduce Jodi Komitor. Jodi, how's it going?
Donna, thank you so much for pulling this together, inviting me to do this chat with you. I'm so excited. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Like I said, I know that I've watched you for years. Many people that I know in my community here locally have taken training with you and have been part of the Next Generation community over the years. And you have definitely had a lasting impact in this community. So, thank you. Thank you for all that you've done and the energy and the love that you've put into it over the years. It is very touching and wonderful to be kind of on your fringes or be a part of that. But tell me a little bit about how you started. I heard that you taught your first kids yoga class when you were like 16 or something like that.
Close. I took my first yoga class when I was
Oh,
16, and
there
that
you
was, that was wildly impactful, because it was my first exposure to yoga through my parents. I always really want to acknowledge my parents for being the introducers to yoga. They were practicing yoga on Fire Island, which is like this sweet little island off of on the East Coast, New York. And they were doing yoga. My parents were always a little bit ahead of their times, and they had a private yoga instructor come to their house. And like a snobby teenager, I was like, "What are you doing?" And then I was like, "All right, fine, I'll try it." And I did, and I totally, it was like the most idyllic setting with the sun
Mm.
setting and on the dock of the bay, and everything was right about it. And literally from that class, and I'm sure you can remember your first class, and our
Yep,
viewers
sure
can remember
can.
their first class. Like that experience was like the impetus for me to actually say, yes, I want more of this in my life. And so I made it a priority. And even as a teenager and then as a college student, and obviously till now.
Yeah, but you didn't start your career as a kids yoga instructor or even as a yoga instructor. You went a different route a little bit before you kind of came home, as it were. What Tell us a little bit about that route.
Yeah, so I was actually thought I was interested in nutrition until my senior year of high school when I was required to do 80 hours of community service. And I just decided, I was like, I'm going to go and volunteer at a Stepping Stones preschool for kids with Down syndrome. And this was like at the end of my senior year of high school when I was already registered to study nutrition. I was like, oh my God, I worked with kids with Down syndrome, and they changed
Mm,
me, right? As I know, and a lot of our community who works with this population knows like how special they are. And so
mm.
I quickly changed, and I was like, F nutrition, I'm going to study to become a school teacher. And so I studied special education and simultaneously was practicing yoga. And when I got out of university, I got a teaching job, teaching special ed in New York City. And I did that for 3 years. Never even thought to bring yoga into the classroom until the third year, during the summer of after my third year of teaching. My mom once again said to me, Jodi, I saw this ad in Yoga Journal magazine, and she was like, you got to do this. And it was Sonia Sumar's program, Yoga for the Special Child. And so that was like oh my goodness, my two passions, yoga and kids with special
Mhm.
needs, put them together, took the training, made like 2 phone calls afterwards, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And I was so like, I'm still so grateful to this day of the support from my parents who were like, yes, we support you. I mean, emotionally, and like follow your dream. And then of course I called the director of my school, and she was like, go girl. And so that
Nice.
was the beginning. And I started off in my apartment in New York City, like just having kids who I worked with from the school
Mhm.
come and take classes with me. And it was it was a struggle at the beginning. Like no one was really doing kids yoga. Um, but
Yeah. Well, when was this? What, 97,
this
98?
was, yeah, this was in '98. So I just want to clarify that I'm actually entering into the 20th year with NGY, right? And so I
Mhm.
think there's I have free creative expression with that. But
Sure.
yeah, totally. So the thing that I really want to actually express, because for people who are like, oh, she just quit her job and started up, kids yoga business. Actually, I was smart in the sense that I was getting a master's degree in learning disabilities at this point, and I took some part-time work doing what we call in New York see it work, so special ed itinerant teaching. And I was basically helping kids with special needs to integrate into the
Mhm.
mainstream classroom. So I had part-time work. I was just talking to one of my coaching clients about this yesterday. She's like, so I shouldn't quit my day job? And I was like, no.
No, don't do that. I tell mine the same time. They're like, "Oh, I want to like quit my day job and do this full time." I'm like, just whoa, that's a great idea, but there's things like paying the bills and making sure that
Uh,
your needs are met,
yeah.
and you need to build the business before you can jump in with 2 feet. It might not be very deep water if you jump in just straight off, which is a really important thing for people to understand because, when you started and when I started, there wasn't a lot of kids yoga demand out there, knowledge, understanding. I got a lot of, you do what?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yoga don't need kids don't need yoga.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's been interesting to see the change. And I think things such as your book, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Kids Yoga, and other, um, you know, resources that were the early resources really helped to communicate some of the background information of why kids need yoga. Can you tell us a little bit about writing that and that process?
Yeah, yeah. So I would love to share about my book, but just also some of those resources that come to mind are
Yeah.
Shakta Khalsa's book, Fly Like a Butterfly.
Yeah. And she's
Marsha,
celebrating her 40th year this year. I did an interview with her earlier, and we talked about that. So if those people are interested in Shakti Khalsa and Radiant Child and are listening, definitely go look what she's doing because she's celebrating 40 years of when she started teaching in the ashram and how it's grown for that in
she's
that
so
time.
amazing.
Yeah, she
She's so
is.
amazing. As is Marsha Wenig and
Yes.
her videos, that the Yoga Kids videos that were out, way early on with
Hmm.
Gayam.
Yeah,
And
they
then
really set the foundation for this work, didn't they?
They did, and I think it's so important that we acknowledge these, these pioneers in our
Hmm.
field because that is our lineage, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, another book that comes to me is Sonia Sumar's book, Yoga for the
Yeah,
Special Child, which was
of
also
course.
very early on. So yeah, so my book, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Yoga with Kids, was like I always say was spoon fed to me. I mean, it was literally. And by the way, it really only came because I had a website. So
Mhm.
if anyone's like, "Do I need a website?" I'm like, "Yes." So
Yes, you do.
for the day that Macmillan wrote me an email. This is,
Hmm.
20 years ago. So email, and they're like, we found your website, which was horrible at the time, but they're like, we found your website and we would love for you to co-author The Complete Idiot's Guide to Yoga with Kids. And I wrote about this in a social media post yesterday saying like, okay, but can we change the title of that book? Because I don't believe in like calling people idiots. Like I did not even know. And so they were like, "No, this is our series. We're gonna keep this."
Yeah.
And so yeah, that book really like flowed, mostly because like the Idiot's Guide, like they really have their system and structure, and
Yeah.
they know pages in each chapter. So knowing that I had like 20 something chapters to write, I had this opportunity to like give it all, and I was like, why hold back? And by the way, I'm like in my 18th month of my career and I'm like super pumped up and jazzed and like very exuberant kids yoga teacher. So I'm like, I'm going to just tell it all and not hold back anything. And so that book is, people really often say it's like my kids yoga Bible because it's so dense. So I'm really grateful for the way it came. We wrote it in about 8 months. We sold, I think, about 10,000 copies, which is not a huge amount, but enough that it feels good. And now it's out of print.
There you go. Find it at your local library,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Vintage.
There's interlibrary loan. You can find this book. People, if you're
It's
listening,
available. It is
go to your
available.
library, go find it.
Yeah, it's on Amazon as well, but
There
they've
you go.
got printed copies. Yeah.
There you go. It served its purpose, right? It set
Oh
some of
yeah.
those foundations, and now you're onto other things like your monthly lesson plans. Can you tell people a little bit if they don't know? Maybe some people don't know about your monthly lesson plans. Can you tell us about those?
Yes, I can, absolutely. Well, just like on the theme of writing, so over the years, I've definitely, loved writing the book, and then I've written some ebooks, and I've always written blogs. And as you know, I did my video blogs for four
Yeah.
years straight. But in terms of writing and putting out curriculum, I had partnered with one of our leaders in Next Generation Yoga, Nicole Kalishas, who is
Mhm.
our director of NGI teacher trainings, and she's also a beloved friend of mine, but plays a very big role in my life with Next Generation Yoga. And so Nicole and I are like, we share a brain. And so we collaborate in writing our monthly lesson plans, and we have been putting out curriculum every month for the last 4 years, which is like so cool and exciting that we have all these different themes, and
Mhm.
we always have a theme for that's appropriate for 2 to 7 year olds and 8 to 13 year olds each month. This month is Root to Rise Reggae Yoga, and so we've done things everything from like kindness matters and powerful purpose and gratitude is our attitude, and we've met the holidays and the seasons and the
Mhm.
conceptual themes, but also then like the real like physical places like a day at the beach or desert dwellers. And so we've really covered a lot, and the funnest is obviously collaborating with Nicole, but like the creative expression that continues to flow through.
Mhm. Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always, like you say, that collaboration. Collaboration is so important, especially I think in the kids yoga world. It's great for me, and I know you agree. It's really important to build your community and to fill in the gaps in your knowledge and your expertise with people who are better at things than you are, as well as to just enjoy that synergy of working together and the fun things that can come out of that. Like it's really great. Yes.
I am such a believer in collaboration, and to think, Donna, that like when I first started this, I was like, I'm doing this all alone, but like in 20 years, right? And so like I'd say probably for the first 10 years of my life, other than working with a business coach, which is a collaborative effort and having other teachers, but like really the latter 10 years have I really resonated and like really come from this belief system that like I actually won't do anything alone. Like I will only collaborate with others on projects and products that I want to create.
Yeah. Well, and you've got two great Gaiam videos now. They came out, what, 2 years ago? 1 year ago?
Yeah,
How 2 years
2 years ago.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Another fabulous collaboration.
Yeah. And people can go and find those. But tell us about this first kids yoga studio that you opened up
First, I would love to
in
say
the olden days.
the all days. So I was teaching, as you know, out of my apartment. I did that for 2 years. And for the first probably like, first year I struggled, right? And then like I hired a business coach and things started to move in the book and everything. Like so the second year was really like it was happening. And it happened so well that like I actually maxed out at my apartment. I could not grow and do the
Hmm.
things that I wanted to do, like offer family yoga classes or
Yeah.
birthday parties or workshops or sell products and stuff like that. So again, smart business decision is I found a nearby studio space. So I didn't have to like completely like relocate my
Hmm.
clientele. So people were like, in Manhattan, it was a block and a half away. On 72nd Street and Broadway, which is like above the busiest subway station ever, which is very fun for children to look out the windows at. So yeah, when I found this building, my mother was again graciously so on board to help me. We found this studio space, and it was on the fifth floor of a pre-war building, which was very drab, very black and white. There was, accountants in the buildings and lawyers, and we love them and we need them, but like they're like this.
Hmm.
And New York
And you're
is,
going to be doing noisy kids yoga.
and we were, so you got the idea, right? So my jam was like, this building reminds me of like when Dorothy was in Kansas and everything's black and white.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to create the studio where you like when Dorothy walks into Munchkin Land and she's like in the land of Oz and like everything is technicolor and gorgeous, and and peaceful and warm and love and joy. And so I created that. And so the studio was literally based on the Wizard of Oz. And we had a linoleum tile yellow brick road. We had we had rainbow curtains. We had flowers on the ceiling. And one of my greatest claims in my career is Time Magazine said it was a fantastical studio where flowers seemed to grow out of the ceiling.
Oh,
And it was,
nice.
yeah, and it was really, really, really sweet. And it was a space where, like, not only could I express my creativity, because that's always very important to me, but it was really a community center where people came and they didn't want to leave. You know that feeling, right?
Yep.
Like they just don't want to leave. And we had people from all over the world coming, and children, and yeah. So I actually opened up a second studio, which is kind of like a quieter, smaller studio in the same building, but it was this idea where we can have classes and trainings going on simultaneously, or private classes and group classes going on simultaneously. And
well, that's a really smart business.
yeah,
right? A lot of studios want to have two spaces just for that reason, one for classes and one for trainings, right?
Yeah. And it was lovely and ideal. It was probably probably a little bit more than I could have chewed at the time, bit off a little bit more than I could chew at the time, which is another story which I'm happy to share if that's of interest. But the second studio space came 3 years later, and it was only open for 2 years, also designed based on the Wizard of Oz. It was carpeted, so it was more for the baby yoga classes and the kids we work with special needs. And then after being a studio owner for 5 years, I had turned 30, and I was like, I need something that's gonna rock my world. I was like depleted and just like I was under resourced, and so one of my students from NGY teacher training invited me to go to Mozambique to co-facilitate a family and yoga dolphin retreat. Another friend of mine was in Malawi teaching, working in preschool setting, and I was like, I'm going to Africa. And so I literally, I had the studio set up, it was all like, it was working for me. And I went to Africa and I spent 3.5 weeks there. And while I was there, I did a lot of yoga with kids very spontaneously. And I realized that like my mission, but my mission is more than just a brick and mortar. It was beyond the studio. Yeah. And I was doing yoga with kids who didn't have a pair of shoes to take off, and I was like, wait, I'm paying 3 rents in New York City and I can do this. And so when I got back 6 months later, I closed the studios, and it was huge, huge, huge lesson in non-attachment for me and for my family.
That would be very, very difficult, right? Because you're still doing the same work. And, I've talked with people who have had to make that decision, and it's heart-wrenching and difficult. And yet it leads to new horizons, and there's a huge growth opportunity there if you're brave enough to do it, right? But that takes a lot of guts at 30 to say, hey, I've got a viable, growing business, secure. I've got the security, but I see my direction somewhere else.
Yeah. It was, and it's funny because I always teach us in our next generation yoga teacher trainings to listen to your heart. Because your heart knows when it's time for the next thing, right? And so that was a classic example. Just like your heart will tell you when, it's time to stop teaching after school classes because it's time to be home with your kids.
Yeah. And I've had to do that, right? A lot of people ask me, because I taught lots of after school classes when my children were smaller. And now they ask, why, where do you teach your kids yoga classes? I'm like, I teach in schools when kids are in school because I have teenagers. And if I can, I want to be home in their transition times. And that means as much as possible being home after school. Right. And
your heart knows.
Right. And so it's just like, I don't do that anymore. Sorry, you have to find someone else who's in that space right now. And that's awesome that this thing that we do is flexible enough to allow so many different manifestations of it. Right? So I want to know a little bit about this special month that you have going on here, this hashtag 20 memories, 20 years. And, June, you're just throwing it all out there, just celebrating the whole month.
I am, and it's fun, and it's just like a little something that I could do that feels really good. And I say little something, but it's a big something because it's really requiring me to, look back down memory lane and to really like it's not, writing these posts actually are super time consuming
Hmm.
because
No,
they're having me.
people don't get that, right? It's like, do you
Well,
know how
because
many hours it took me to write that?
and I'm also like taking my time with the process because that's really important to do in our business is to really look back, right? And what have we created? Who have we impacted? And actually, reconnecting with some of those people along the way too. So it's been really sweet. I got clear on like what are the 20 memories that I really want to share, and and then like writing about them and keeping them tight and short enough so that they're not like a book because I could do that too, and then also like digging in the photo albums, which is so much fun. So it's been really sweet, and it's been emotional. I'm not gonna lie, I've definitely had some tears along the way, and it feels really good to share. And I think that it's reconnected me with a lot of people in my past life, so that's sweet.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Because yeah, you've moved across country. You've um, traveled extensively with your work and as well as personally. And there's been lots of things happen in your life, right? I first learned about you when you were in New York and you had Chance
Yeah.
and your beloved puppy with you. And I was watching, these blog posts and this lady, Jodi Komitor, and she's everywhere and she's doing all this stuff. And I'm just like, man, this girl's got it going on. And it's just been really fun being able to be, as I said, one of your colleagues and one of the people in your on the fringes of your world, and to watch everything that you do. It's you've had a
Yeah.
huge impact, and you were given the what is, oh, I'm going to get it wrong, the kind ambassador of the year. I can't remember what that award
Kind
is that you,
awesome award.
yeah, the kind awesome award, there we go, that's it, right? You were given that one year for all your work. And
Yeah.
can you tell, kind of, as how does it feel to be considered one of the, mothers, as it were, of the kids yoga world?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that blessing. What feels like a blessing. So thank you. Yeah, it's mildly overwhelming. Again, I go back to this place of like it just feels normal. Like this is just who I am, and it's like who my identity is. And then at the other time, and I offer this all the time to my coaching clients, like regardless of where they're at in their career, whether they're 3 months in or 3 years in, to actually pause and stop and like kind of like get from this bird's eye view and look down at yourself and look like I get to look down at myself and what I've created and what I've done. So it's beautiful. It's absolutely it's an honor. It's a privilege. And as I see so many other kids yoga teachers and very successful kids yoga teachers, sort of in this next generation now, who are rocking it, with their books and with their TV programs and their online stuff, stuff that I haven't even done. I feel proud knowing that this has been a real snowball effect,
Mhm.
coming from my teachers of Marsha and Shaka and Sonia Sumar and to teaching me and then I teach other people and then they teach other people and look at all the kids that get touched along the way. So it's a real gift and a blessing that I count every day.
Awesome. So can you tell me, what was probably one of the biggest challenges, the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome to make it to this point? I'm sure there have been a number of them, but what's one of those points where you just went, oh my goodness, I don't know if this is going to happen
Yeah.
anymore?
I share two.
For sure.
Keep them short. Um, so the first one was early on, and the first one was like just struggling and just trying to like figure out how to make it work because I was a school teacher. I knew nothing about business. And like I said, the first year was a struggle. I mean, I went from job security and insurance and like basically having it set to like, okay, now I'm going to get a master's degree and live in New York City, which was expensive still, 20 years ago. And try to start up this business. And I had part-time work, but like still it was a struggle. And the way I sourced myself out was, and I tell this story often because it's so good, is I said yes to a business coach. I said yes to like this guy, Michael Port, who's like a very fabulous, famous man today. Michael Port, very handsome. And I went to a yoga class and I said, this is actually one of my 20 memories, 20 years. I think it's today coming up. And he introduced himself. He says, "Hey, I'm your yoga teacher and I'm starting out my career as a business coach for yoga teachers." And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds like something I need. And I hired him. I like dipped into my savings from bat mitzvah money and I hired him. And what he taught me was literally the difference that helped me to get to the next level. So that was like a one big challenge because I was scared. Like I did not want to go back out to the classroom, or I was losing sleep, and that's one. I think the second one is I alluded to it earlier, was when I took the second studio, and I think it was I grew too fast. Granted, I had the studio for 3 years, but it was just too quick of growth. And the one thing I was teaching, I've heard people say, is like slow, steady growth is really the way to make it. And I think I just went too fast and I got a little bit over my head with my responsibilities, and financially it was just,
Yeah.
like I said, I had three.
Well, and that's easy to do, right? Especially if you haven't built that team that you can walk away. It's like I'm here 24/7, it feels like, and I love what I'm doing, but I'm feeling a little drained by what I'm doing
Yeah.
at the
And
same
it's
time.
exciting, right? And it's also like hard to say no because it's so exciting. You're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
another studio. But yeah, making sure to like really have all the pieces in place, the financial, the team, the personal bandwidth.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. All right. Can you tell people what to expect the rest of the month and where they can find all your goodies?
So we have lots of goodness happening. I am doing the social media series. So over 20 days this month, I will be sharing a memory, hashtag 20 memories, 20 years. So that's cool. It's on my personal page. It's also on our Next Generation Yoga page, Instagram and Facebook. We are also gifting anyone who's interested in joining us for a teacher training. We're gifting 20% off the entire month. So that's a sweet deal. And we have a ton of trainings happening right now. So that's really cool. We also just today revealed the brand new Next Generation Yoga teacher training for school-based educators. And I know it's like, this is the thing, bring yoga into the schools, which we've been doing for a while now. But now we actually have an 8-hour training where people can learn.
Full day. Is that done in 1 day or over 2 days?
It's in 1 day.
It's one full day. Yep.
This first one is being done in one full day. It's a Saturday in New Orleans with Michelle Ganell, who's our developer for that training. So that is this month. I also have a wildly full personal life this month, which is great. And also I will be continuing to put out my weekly newsletters for the Biz of Kids Yoga, as well as, Next Generation Yoga communication. So it's happening.
Everything else that you do is just continue, and you just add a little bit more icing and sprinkles and a cherry on top, right?
And sprinkles and cherry.
Awesome. All right. Anything else you'd like to add? What is maybe your number one lesson? Like if you could encapsulate it in one phrase, what's your number one lesson for someone who wants to embark into this kids yoga wonderful world that we inhabit? What would you like to say to them?
Yeah. So first I want to say that actually this morning I started writing a blog post for the 20 lessons that I learned. So I'm hoping to get that out next week. But if I can come up with one lesson, I mean, and this is so me, and people who know me, it's like radical self-care. It's like, Donna, you and I were talking earlier about being a mom and doing this business. And, really I feel that unless we take care of ourselves, and yes, I'm talking about massages and manicure and pedicures, but I'm also talking about getting good sleep and eating well and drinking water and setting really healthy boundaries and saying no if that's what's best. Because being able to take care of this vessel and do, 20 years of business or have any business and do life successfully, we have to implement these tools that I know we all know. And we could always be up leveling. That's my thing, is like, how can I up level my self care even more?
Awesome.
That's my biggest
Yeah.
thing. Is like that, and you could do the business.
Yeah. Well, you got to fill your own cup, right? It's like, I've got to be filled so that I can then give to others.
Totally.
And if you're going on empty, there's not a lot to give to others.
Totally.
Right. And so build your team, take your time, invest in you with whatever feeds you, and then know that it's perfect in the chaos that it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Awesome.
I just want to say thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. You have definitely been an inspiration in my journey over the last 20 years. I love that we've shared some memories at the National Kids Yoga Conference. I've been done some classes and courses with you and yoga my school. And so yeah, thank you so much for your impact, not only on me personally, but also in our industry as well.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Like I said, it's really fun that we can connect this way, that distances aren't such a thing anymore. And all the best with 20 years. And I hope you get another 20 years out of it, babe.
Me too. Right?
Awesome. All right. Gorgeous. Namaste to you.
Bless you. Bless
all
you.
The best.
Thanks everyone who watched.